declare no election, no 2023 general election in Biafra land. This no election in Biafra land has been activated. We are going to make it a task that must be done by every Biafran. All measures will be put in place to make sure the adequate civil disobedience is implemented to stop the election in Biafra land.
Fortunately, we don't reason like that. Anybody thinking that Igbo presidency 2023 will stop us? What we want is Biafra, and what we're going to get is Biafra.
Yes, welcome to this live broadcast, the first day of another working week, of a special week. I'm sorry, I don't know the things I said initially. I just lost them because I was muted here and never knew I was muted. Thank you for really drawing my attention to that. Thank you all, and I welcome you all to this live broadcast. This is the 5th of October, sorry, the 9th of October, Sunday, the 9th of October, 2022. Another week of blessing, another week of open doors, another week of experiencing some dimensional blessing and some new things in our lives. I want to welcome you, those of you who have joined me right now, and I say you're especially welcome. The purpose of this broadcast today is to give us an exposition of the basis of our problems. Remember, before you begin to deal with any issue, you have to first of all trace the problem to its root. And basically, as Africans, we have a fundamental problem that helped the Jews. That helped that made sure that helped the British to design, or the British Empire to design a particular format for the control and subjugation of our people. And of course, you must understand basically also that the link between what is happening to us now and what is what we actually experienced in the past is connected. So for us to be able to do this thing very, very well, we must actually get to the source and the root of our problems. God bless you all for joining me. I want to first make you understand something basically. You know that we began with a particular civilization in this world where Biafrans were part of that civilization. When you talk about the first civilization, which is the Egyptians, the Egyptian Empire, which was the first civilization, Biafra was fundamentally, or the Jews, Biafrans included, were fundamentally part of those who made that civilization effective, which means that Africa and the Jewish nation were collectively involved. Remember, the Igbos or the Biafrans are Jews. Of course, we can trace our source. It's confirmed that we trace our source to Eri, who is the 7th son of Jacob. And of course, we can trace our link to Eri, who is the 5th son of God, who is the 7th son of Jacob. So now, which means that there is a connection between Biafra, the Jewish nation, and the first civilization. But we will identify the characteristics of that first civilization in comparison to how civilization now became corrupted along the line that now caused even Biafra, that caused the first civilization, or that was part of the first civilization, to become a victim of the subsequent civilization. And not just being a victim of it, but being a victim in a gruesome way. So we are going to identify these things. But before we go on, definitely, I am going to actually make you understand. I wish I was able to. I'm able to, with say the things I said initially when I was muted. I'm able to say them because I pointed some basic facts. But God helping me, we're going to go into those facts. If we want to look at the nation of Biafra, we discover that Biafra has been strongly part of civilization all through the humanistic kingdom, all through the empires of the nation. Of course, Biafra was actually withdrawn from the Jewish nation and came to a place called West Africa, which is the eastern part of the Western Africa, and we came to settle. But there is a problem, and you're going to get to understand how this problem began and how this problem has subsisted and how this problem has been maintained and how this problem has been used to form the basis of British colonial design. These problems were used as principles in corrupting the culture, because what Britain did was to bring their culture, bring their way of life, and then brought the concept of a corrupted religious system. Now, remember, I told you that religion is not way of life. I didn't say they brought a way of life or the way of life. Let me not say a way of life, because culture is a way of life that is designed from a particular style or from a particular system of religious beliefs and religious connotations. So we're going to be looking at these things critically. But first, remember, I told you about the song that Fela sang. I'm going to use this song as a basis because I want to entertain you. At the same time, I want to make you learn some stuff from this man who is a philosopher and who actually saw tomorrow, Fela Nicola Poputi. In this song, remember, I've been playing this song. In this his particular song, he actually made points reference to let me give you the lines. He said, all the wahala, all the problems. I'll play the song, you're going to hear. All the things where we think is good. It starts when teacher, schoolboy, and schoolgirl jam together. That means the point of meeting the teacher and the point of meeting the student. This meeting actually brought a kind of disastrous interpretation of principles that were designed out of a culture corrupted with religion. Did you get that? This meeting of the teacher and student brought about was brought about an explosion. Let me not call it an implosion because it has not imploded. We want to implode it now so that we can get Biafra out of it, because when we implode Nigeria, we get Biafra out of it. So what we want to do is this: what caused the disaster between the principles of the British system, because the principles were drawn out of a corrupt system or a corrupt practice or a corrupt culture that was poisoned with the concept of religion, which was corrupted using a pattern of life. So now when we come to that, I'm going to explain it better so that we can understand it very, very well and we all can understand. But I want to play this song so that you can understand what Fela said. He said, who be teacher? I go let you know. When we be picking, Papa and Mama be teacher. When we desk for school, teacher be teacher. When we dey university, lecturer be teacher. When we start to work, government be teacher. Who be government teacher? Culture and tradition. Now, the concept of British subjugation of Africa actually began with a design of a culture and tradition. What they did is this: they brought their culture, they now fused in their culture principles that were carved out of a religious system. That religious system was corrupted with some kind of things that brought about the principles to being. So these things were fused into that culture they brought in. So they brought their culture, which they enjoyed and they liked, and they now fused it with that corrupt side of that religion. Remember, I didn't say they fused it with the way of life, because the way of life is the God way of life. The way of life is God's way. I didn't say they fused it with the way of life. I said they fused it with a way of life, which is a product of religious design brought out of the concept of the way of life, which is what Jesus represents, which is what God actually represents, which is what God actually designed for us. So they fused it in this concept of a way of life. Religion became a particular concept brought out of the way of life, used to form a way of life that corrupts a particular tradition or culture, which they now sent to Africa. So bringing it to Africa, or bringing it to the zoo or the contraption or West Africa, or all the parts of the world where they actually, subjugated the people, it's now became an explosive problem. It caused devastation, it caused death, because it was foreign to the natural things that have to do with the people. It was very foreign. Now I'm going to play this video so that you can enjoy the music, enjoy the groove. It's an Afrobeat song. You know, Afrobeat is a kind of song, a fusion of African folk tune and then, you know, contemporary blues. Sorry, not contemporary blues now. It's contemporary jazz and contemporary funk, you know, fused with African folk tune to make a particular meaning. Now, as you enjoy this song, I want you to take down the words one after the other, the vital words you need to understand one after the other. This song forms the basis of where the problem began, where we got here, and how we can come out of it. This song has the complete episode, or the summed up episode, or the complete summation of what we are going to be talking all through this program as we continue. Remember, this program itself takes different topics because each topic will give us a meaning of what we are trying to pass across. Remember, the concept of what we are doing is to see that we get our people knowledgeable, because it is in the place of knowledge that the information of that particular knowledge begins to affect the people positively, so that we begin to get the right result. Now, listen to this song very well. I want you to listen to it very well. I want to appreciate every one of you who have sent a message. I appreciate you very well. Thank you for joining me. Now, listen to this song. It's just a 9 minutes time. You just enjoy it, but the meaning of the song should actually minister to you in the context of what we're talking about. Listen to it and enjoy it, and then I'll continue the narrative. I'll begin to put it in perspective so that you can understand how our problem, how Africa lost it, how Biafra will restore it. Listen.
All the wahala, all the problems, all the things we would think that you could do for this world in the start. When a teacher, schoolboy and schoolgirl jam together. Whoopie teacher, I go let you know. Whoopie teacher, I go let you know. Whoopie teacher, I go let you know. When we be picking, when we did for school,
teacher be teacher.
when we did university,
Lecturer be teacher.
when we start to walk,
Government be teacher.
we be government teacher, culture and tradition. We be government teacher,
Culture and tradition.
culture and tradition,
Culture and tradition.
culture and tradition.
Culture and tradition.
Now the problem side of a teacher student, I go sing about. I don't pass speaking, I don't pass school, universities ever pass. As I don't start to walk, now government I must confess to. You go for France,
Yes, sir.
England,
Yes, sir.
Italy,
Yes, sir.
Germany, and them culture.
Yes, sir.
For the British,
Yes, sir.
for them, you go Russia,
Yes, sir.
China,
Yes, sir.
Korea,
Yes, sir.
Vietnam, and them culture.
Yes, sir.
For the British,
sir.
for them, you go Syria,
Yes, sir.
Jordan,
Yes, sir.
Iran,
Yes, sir.
Iraq.
Yes,
Now them
sir.
culture
Yes, sir.
for the
Yes, sir.
British,
Yes, sir.
for them.
Yes, sir.
Let us face ourselves for Africa. Not the matter of Africa. Bring this party of my song. Now all the problems of this world, now him we they carry for Africa. You know go asking me.
Which one?
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 Problems of inflation,
Which one?
problems of corruption,
Which one?
of mismanagement,
Which one?
still by government,
Which one?
still by government.
Which one?
Now here we they carry
Which one?
all over Africa.
Which one?
Now the latest one,
Which one?
now him they make me laugh.
Which one?
Austerity,
Austerity.
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 Now the latest one,
Austerity.
now him they make me laugh.
Austerity.
Why are they laugh?
Austerity.
Man no fit cry.
Austerity.
Oh, Ubia watishana uyibo. Ubia watishana uyibo. All of us the first election and the second election all in Nigeria. Now the second election now he was a pass. Babala nonsense.
Babala nonsense.
Babala nonsense.
Babala nonsense.
He passed the rigging.
Babala nonsense.
He passed corruption.
Babala nonsense.
He passed rigging.
Babala nonsense.
Which kind of election be this?
Babala nonsense.
People no go vote.
Babala nonsense.
They come get big numbers.
Babala nonsense.
Thousands to thousands.
Babala nonsense.
Millions to millions.
Babala nonsense.
Which kind of election be this?
Babala nonsense.
Babala nonsense.
Babala nonsense.
Babala nonsense.
Babala nonsense.
Now they monkey race we be that yo. Now they monkey race we be that yo. Put shall see the monkey race. Na oyibo tishi ozi. Na oyibo for Europe. Oh, t-shirts many things. Many of them things I don't sing about it. Me I not get it to copy your style. Me I not get it to copy your style. I want ask go want no question. But Shagari finish me elections. But them not tell I'm say he make mistake. But them not tell I'm say he make mistake. Say this one go be democracy. But Oyibo them not tell I myself. That for England I mean no which take over. I come think about this democracy. Democracy. Crazy demo. Demonstration of grace. Crazy demonstration. If it no be grace, why for Africa? As time they go, things just they bad more and more. Poor man they cry, rich man they mess. Democracy, crazy demo. Demonstration of grace, crazy demonstration. If good do teacher teaches something and the student make mistake, teacher must talk so, but Oyibo not talk so. I support them, they support them, it no say them teaching get meaning. different meaning, different kinds of meaning. That is why I sing it, that is the conclude of my song. That is the conclude of my song. I sing, I beg everyone to join my song. I sing, I beg everyone to join my song. I sing, I beg everyone to join my song. Teacher, oh, that is the lecturer your name. Teacher, oh, I'm the lecturer it is said. Make it not teach me again, no. Facility finish, yes, that day you don't die, no. Facility finish, yes, that day you don't die, no. Facility finish, yes, that day you don't die. Me and you not there for the same old category. Me and you not there for the same old category. Me and you not there for the same old category. Me and you not there for the same old category. Not the same category, yo. Category, category, yo. Category.
Yes, please. Are you getting the network well? Is it coming out well? Please let me know, because it is raining cats and dogs here out there. The rain is so heavy and it's affecting the signal. Please make me understand. If you are getting my signal very well, send me a message so that I can see if I can continue, or I wait for the rains to be over and I come later in the evening, or we do it later later in the day. Please send me a message. Let me know if the signal is coming well, because Mrs. Adazayon says breaking transmission. What is going on? Please, I want to know if it's working well. Please send me a message. Let me know if it's working so that I will know whether to continue or to stop for now, because of the network signal. Because I can see my network signal here. The sign here is very poor. Please let me know, please. Okay, it is raining cats and dogs here now. The weather is very, very, very bad. It's stormy. It's a stormy rain. So please, I would want to end this broadcast here, and I'll come up again when the weather is calm and cool. I think it's affecting the signal. So please pardon me. I'm sorry. My signal sign here is just at 1 bar, and it is very, very poor. That is why the things are not playing very well, and the things are being affected. I don't know why the weather had to start. The rains have to start at this time that I began. I believe that you're not getting the signal properly, so I'm going to end it here, and I'm going to come on. Please, Margaret, please signal me. Are you hearing my voice clearly? Am I coming out well? Am I coming out well? Please let me know. Because I can get your message now. You said we must get Biafra. Nothing will stop us. Yes, I got your message, Margaret. But give me a message if I am coming out. Or anybody can give me a message if I'm coming out properly. If you can hear me loud and clear, please let me know. Because the network signal here is very poor. So that I don't speak for nothing. I want to speak and make sure I communicate. So please, is there anybody who is going to let me know? Please let somebody send me a message. Margaret, job where you can send me a message also so that I can be sure that I am actually coming out loud and clear so that I don't waste time talking without people knowing or hearing what I'm saying. So please, okay, all right. Thank you so much for that signal. Thank you so much for that. I want to say sorry for the interruption. Now, basically, what we want to achieve today is that we want to pass a message to our people to understand how we began, how our problems began. Now, and I led you back to the beginning of civilization and how world powers began. And of course, the other time, yesterday, okay, yes, okay, thank you so much, man. Thank you for the signal. Thank you so much for that. Now, yesterday, I was talking about the Egyptian empire that began the civilization. Now, remember, when Egypt was about becoming the world power and taking care of the globe economically, which strengthened their power and gave them the ability to control the world at that point in time, it was economic because God gave a revelation to Pharaoh, which was actually interpreted by the Jews or by a Jew who is called Joseph, who was in captivity. Remember, he was in captivity when he revealed the meaning of what God was going to do. And then God now uses him as a means of controlling the economic power of Egypt because he became the second in command of Pharaoh. Pharaoh was the power, the political power. Um, Joseph became the economic power. That means the Jews became fundamentally the controllers of the world economy by, managing the economic strength of Egypt, which was the global power at that time. Now, I'm pointing this history so that you can know where Africa lost it. So listen carefully so that you can get the facts very well, get the facts very right. Remember, what brought the Jews into this matter was first because they had an ability to reveal an economic approach that would give Pharaoh power over the globe. So, which means the Jews were instrumental to giving Pharaoh a fundamental knowledge of what will make him powerful all over the world. Pharaoh understood this because he had a dream and revelation from God. God gave him that revelation. Remember, the Jewish nation had not been established then. The Jews were still, in their own rights, in their own confinement in Canaan, doing their little thing in their own corner as they grow. But now God was going to establish an economic power that will make Israel, or that will give the Jews a fundamental platform to expand and grow, exuding the talents and the gifts of their abilities. So, in the first place, God gives the Jews, which the Biafrans were part of, because Biafra came from God. Remember, Biafra was in the alliance of God when all these things were happening. So when Joseph was able to reveal to Pharaoh, he was representing the totality of the nation of Israel, which Biafrans were part of. Biafrans were in the alliance of God at that time. Of course, God gave birth to Eri, who was his fifth son, who now came to Biafra land to establish. Now, as soon as they were able to establish that, and they now all moved to Egypt, they were able to strengthen Egypt economically, doing the work, doing the labor, doing all they need to do to get Egypt to be strong. Egypt became economically strong and powerful. Now, when Egypt became economically strong and powerful, the concept of slavery was not really a product of global control. What I mean is this: Egypt was in power and their focus was economic strength to survive, to make the nations of the world survive. That means to make the world and survive the famine that was on it. So Egypt became the power. But at a point in time, when Egypt saw that the nation of Israel were too powerful and too gifted, and they were going to be too great, and in spite of the fact that they know that the redemption that came to the world came from because the Jews actually gave a revelation or gave an interpretation to a dream that was revealed to Pharaoh. They saw it as a means that if they could be so powerful, if they allow the person who gave them the ability to understand how this power works, they would become second class. Those people will take over them. That was what prompted Pharaoh to now decide to turn the Israelis to slaves. Now, that was where the problem of the globe began. Rather than honoring when God gave Africa the power to control the globe and to manage the economy of the globe and to get the globe to be productive, what now came in the mind of man or in the mind of the Africans was that they saw it as a means of, exceeding absolute power. They felt that the people who helped them get the power were going to take over. That is the Israelis. And if the Israelis were going to take over, then they have to do something to make sure that the Israelis don't take over. Rather, they will do something to keep them down there and keep them under them. Now, not minding the fact that if Israel helped them to climb, then their sustenance or the ability to stay in that level of power is going to be sustained by that power that gave them the revelation, which means that God would have sustained Africa's authority over the globe if they had not become evil to themselves. Because God brought Israel into the scene, but God gave the economic power and the superpower to Egypt by using Israel to control the globe economically. So Israel was helping Pharaoh to be strong politically because Israel had the ability to manage the economy of Egypt. So Egypt, being an African nation, was in control, but they now discovered that if they want to, they now discovered in their own corrupt mentality that if they want to sustain their power, they have to be corrupt and they have to adopt the concept of slavery. That was when they began to miss it. That was the first beginning of Africa's problem. The desire, the selfish desire to retain power by enslaving other people. That was when slavery became established as a means of sustaining power supremely over other people. So Egypt got the power given to them by God, but they messed it up by turning it against themselves to destroy the people who helped them get that power. That was where Africa's problem began. Now, as soon as that happened, God began to deal with Egypt. God reduced Egypt to the point that the leaders became drowned in the Red Sea. That ended the superpower of Egypt. That ended the ability of Egypt to control. Now remember, I told you that civilization started in Babel, which was built by Nimrod, who was the king of Babel. He built the city of Babel. He exuded his control and power. And then he now became so selfish about power that he thought that there might be a supernatural intervention that would destroy his power. So he now decided to build a tower that would house the signals of his power, or the seal of his power, the sun and all of that, as a means of becoming dominant and taking control of the globe. But God intervened and destroyed them. So you see, God gives power to people, but men begin to corrupt those powers to use it as a means of absolute control, and then God intervenes and destroys them. Now I'm going to relate this to Biafra. You're going to see how it's going to relate to Biafra. How this strongly, you'll be surprised and amazed in this analysis. Now, the first empire, the first development, or the first civilization, which began with Nimrod building that massive structure and that city and that nation, because he had some powers He had some physical powers. He was a great hunter. At the same time, he was a great hunter of men and animals. And at the same time, he had some powers. He had the ability to put two people together and control people. So he built that nation as a means of controlling and subjugating people, not in the sense of slavery, but in the sense of putting them under his control. And he wanted an absolute power that ascends, beyond the natural. The same way Satan in Isaiah chapter 14 lusted, because of the power he had. Now, if you observe the issue or the problem of the world since inception, it has been that when people are given power by God, they tend to corrupt it with their selfish desires. Satan said, I will ascend on high, and I will erect my throne on high, and I will do this, I will do that, I will do this, I will do that, I will do that. It was all about I. When Nimrod began, Nimrod also began to do that. I will do this, I'll build Tower of Babel, I'm going to build a structure that will make me ascend up there, and that I'll reach up to the heavens, and that I'm going to have control and all of that. And so Nimrod also talked about high, and God destroyed him. The same way God destroyed Lucifer when he was talking about I. Egypt now came on, and they now felt that they were going to destroy Israel, fearing that they were going to lose their power, fearing that they were going to lose the power God has given to them. That was how God brought them down. And as soon as Egypt was defeated, another nation came up, the Assyrians, and they now began to exude their power. They now began to exude it in the template of Egypt. Now, see how slavery began. Slavery has been in existence quite all right, but it was in a low scale, because what people did was that they bought slaves from other places and used it in their private stuff and their businesses. There was no global power. But Egypt now instituted it as a concept of global subjugation, or subjugating nations. The whole of Israel became a slave, both Biafra, because Biafra was in the lands of God. Biafra was, from Eri, and Eri was part of the slaves in Egypt. So what happened is this: Africa enslaved Biafra and the Jewish nation. Africa was the first continent to enslave Biafra and to enslave the Jewish nation. You, of course, if you read the Bible very well, you see the slavery in Exodus. You see how they were suffering, the pain they were going through until Exodus 15, where God now saved them. The pain they were going through, everything they were going through, how they were being beaten, how their works were being doubled, how they were being, killed. Just like what we played, what is happening in Congo, what we played the other time, in the joint broadcast of Monday that we did on Friday, where you saw what was happening in Congo, where they amputate people because they were not actually giving them the quantity of rubber or the products they needed, the economic raw materials they needed. They were killing people and subjugating them, at the same time cutting their arms, cutting their legs, cutting every part of their body, because they were not actually doing the thing they want them to do. The same way also Egypt was doing to Israel. They were beating them, killing. Some of them were dying. They were starving them. They don't give them enough food, yet they give them burden. They make them work so hard to meet the demand of their economic growth and development. So Africa became, powerful because Israel was working their ass out. Biafra also being of God area and all of them. They were there working to make sure that Egypt becomes stronger and more powerful. The walls around Egypt, the bricks, everything was being designed by the Jewish nation, which Biafra is part of. So they started the slavery of Biafra and the Jews in Africa. Africa became cursed by God when God now began to deal with Pharaoh. And God now took the power from them and now gave the power to the Assyrians. The Assyrians now continued the template of the Egyptians. They now attacked Israel, or attacked, that means that was after Israel had left Egypt now and have gone into their promised land. Now, as soon as they got into their promised land, the Assyrians now began to seek for power too. They were now God now allowed them, gave them power, gave them strong men who were judging them and all of that. And they saw it as a means of attacking that nation. Now remember, sorry, please. Now remember, in Egypt identified the power and the gifts of Biafra and the Jewish nation. Remember, I told you, Eri is the son, the fifth son of God. God is the father of Eri. God is the seventh son of, of Jacob. Sorry, God is the fifth son of Jacob. Why Eri is the seventh son also? Am I missing it? Somebody correct me if you can remember. Sometimes we miss this. But what I'm trying to point out here is this. The subjugation, the template which Pharaoh used to put the Jews and Biafra under subjugation was slavery, forced labor. And how did they do that? They made sure that the talents and the abilities of these people were being used to develop their nations. At the same time, they were not paying them for it. They were punishing them. They were killing them. They were subjugating them. They were using their raw materials, their human resources, their human capabilities. The same way now, all over the nations of the world, Biafrans are being used. Their gifting, their talents, their strength, their ability is being used to develop the nations of other nations, the nations of the world. The same template. Now remember, Africa began it. Egypt began it. Now, in Egypt, Biafra left and came to the West Africa part of Egypt. Sorry, of Africa. And now, in the west side of Africa, Biafra began. The nation of Biafra began. Now, the people of Biafra still understood what it means to be Jewish. So the customs, the traditions, everything became designed in the concept of what God actually told them originally, or what their tradition and culture was as a Hebrew nation. So Biafra's formation, the culture of Biafra and everything was in that unity, that's love, that concept of unity and love. But because of the subjugation they experienced in Egypt, remember, Eri left with other people he took with him. They came to West Africa. They built a nation. They started living together, and they began to spread, and so many things began to happen. But one thing that affected them was this. They had been in Egypt for a long time before their fathers left, before the remaining, children of Israel left Egypt. Eri had left. So before they were even delivered from Egypt, Eri had left. Now, but he left with a mentality because he was born in Egypt, and the subjugation of Egypt now became part of him. Eri, that began the Igbo nation, had already had the mentality of slavery. So the mentality of slavery became predominant in the way he began to deal with his children and the nations that began to come out of him, or the people that began to come out of him. You discover that we now had a system affected by two ways of that mental mind, or that mentality that he had. The first mentality was to make sure that they become equal in their behavior, because they have seen number one, that in Egypt they were slaves, and the only way they could survive was that unity to encourage themselves. So Eri brought that mentality to Biafra. That was why you saw that in Biafra, or in the Igbo land. Remember, I told you that Igbo represents all tribes under Biafra. So your source is Biafra, or your race. You are an Igbo. You are from the Igbo race, but you are a Biafran as a nation. Now, he brought that mentality of togetherness. That is why you saw that Biafra or Igbos don't have somebody who is sitting as a supreme leader over them. Because what they learned from Egypt was this togetherness, this survival by being together, respecting the head of the house, talking on their behalf, but yet everybody being equal, dealt with equally, with respect to leaders, or with respect to elders. They learned that principle, and it formed the basis of the culture of how Biafra began. Biafra began as a people who are Republicans. They are Republicans. They saw themselves as together. They didn't have one person having superior control or total control, or whose voice becomes the way or the means of them, worshiping, of the means of them, being controlled or the means of them not having a voice or say. They had this unity, which of course they gave respect and regard to leaders. So we had this democratic system from the mentality that we had, the mentality that came from the suffering of our people in Egypt. So coming back to Biafra land with that mentality helped them to build a republican style. That was the advantage of the slavery. So Eri, when he came in, he passed this across, and that is how Biafra came about, not having a kind of a kind of totalitarian style of operation. We became democrats. We became people who actually the first democratic nation of the world, or became republicans. We actually were concerned about the people. The voice of the people was total. The voice of the people was complete. The voice of the people, it was about the people. That was how it began. So now that was the benefit. But how did we lost it? How was it lost? When Egypt lost this civilization or this ability to control, the Assyrians took over. They continued the template of Egypt. They started subjugating the Israelis. That was the suffering. Now Israel got also under that bondage. And of course, the template of using people and making them slaves, using a whole nation and making a whole nation slave, became very, very, a core part of the empires of the countries that took over from that time. So now let's bring it to the realm of Biafra. As soon as Biafra was born, and as soon as Biafra came into being, of course, the Igbo race, it began with the Igbo race. They were named the Igbos, and then they now, decided to adopt the name Biafra as a nation. As soon as they were born, I told you about the benefits. One, they saw the advantage of unity, which they learned out of slavery, out of the pain of slavery. They now developed that democratic system, that republican system where everybody is equal. The voice of the people is very important. What the people say, what they agree, what they decide to do together became important. That was what formed the basis of Biafra. But another thing that became a problem for Biafra was this. That is what also affected Africa. The civilization that was truncated by God, taking it away from Egypt, left Egypt devastated. Egypt never saw the need to improve in the concept of development and growth. As soon as Pharaoh was drowned in the sea, the Red Sea and his men, Egypt now fell back to crisis. So the nation of Israel began to look inwards to try to survive. Because now the people who actually were creating a kind of economic force for them had gone. They never saw the need to grow themselves alongside these people. Rather, they chose to subjugate these people who are the Israelis. Now the Israelis now left. They now became stranded. They didn't learn anything from the Israelis. They never learned talents and gifting and how to use their skills and all of that. They never learned these things very well in a way to understand in the sense. I'm not saying they didn't know how to do things, quite all right. They never learned it in a sense to understand that they could actually strengthen their political power by being economically buoyant and powerful. So they started living in the glory of what they already had, the pyramid and other things. Egypt began to live in that. So it now made them dormant, redundant. They were not thinking of searching out new things. So Africa began to degenerate. Rather than concentrating on building more developments, economically taking control and maintaining that control, they now began to glory in what they had, and they began to rather focus on religious practice. So they began to divert their strength and energy into religious things. They began to build religious system to control the people, because they felt the government of Egypt began to think that the only way to survive is to actually have control, because they felt that control is the only source of surviving. Remember, control is positive when it has to do with benefits that accrue to the people. But they never learned that. So in Biafra, when we came now, the first thing we learned was the democratic system, which the togetherness and unity. We had the democratic system, we had the republican system, but we now missed something. that subjugation that we experienced in Egypt, which Eri and the people he came with experienced in Egypt, now made them to begin to concentrate on just being united and being, contented with the things they have. So that contentment that they had now made them never think of exploring their inner abilities to create more development on the template of what they experienced in Egypt. They learned the negative aspect of that template. They knew how to use their talents, but they never now translated it into their nation, Biafra, to understand that what they need to do now is to begin to explore new grounds where their talent of building economic power to strengthen political power can thrive. So they were no more making researches that has to do with earth, or making researches of global, or using natural resources and making researches with natural resources to create global strength and possibilities. That was when they became dormant. So they were contented. They were living this life of contentment. And thank you, Mete Jogra. You say, yes, you're right. In fact, that was what this Zoo government will receive when Biafra is restored by God's grace. Yes, they're going to receive that because they are going to also drown. They're going to implode. Nigeria will implode. That's what's going to happen. So now, Biafra, now that mentality of slavery affected them. Rather than spreading their knowledge, they now began to look for means of keeping themselves united. So they began to, explore the concept of religion, the concept of staying together. Staying together, religion has a way of giving you a kind of thinking, where you now think of how you're going to stay together, how you're going to just be contented with what you have, how you're going to just feed yourselves. And so Biafra nation, in spite of the power they have, they now resolve in not using their powers explicitly to try to create a kind of platform where they will be to get strong, powerful, and that became a weak point. So, because it became a weak point, and let me tell you this, in the human sphere of operation, because God naturally gave man an ability to be strong and creative, to recreate. Remember, when God created the world, he stopped at the point of man. When he created man, he now said man should take dominion. That means man can now recreate from what is already created. Man can now begin to do things uniquely with what he already has, that God has given, that God has created. So for man to actually explore the abilities he has he's going to utilize in the template of God, what God has actually done for humanity, the template that he has set in the garden. Of course, when God built the garden, God now designed man and put him in the garden. And the garden became a template of how man will make the world globally, productive. So that global concept of productivity was needed for man to use by the template of Eden. Now, some of us don't understand the Garden of Eden was just a template. God created man, created everything, and now created man and put man in the garden. He now said, now increase and fill the world and multiply, fill and replenish the world. God had plenished the world. He now told man to replenish the world. That means what I have done, the template of garden, how beautiful, the template of Eden, how beautiful it is and everything. That is what you are going to do all over the globe now. But what happened was that, Emmanuel Ifred, thank you for joining me. Say good afternoon, Mr. Kell, the Biafra great teacher. Thank you so much. We are learning so much from you. Please, I need you to teach on where was Midwest when the country was in regions. Where was Midwest? I don't understand. Are you talking about the Midwest in the contraption Nigeria? When they're talking about the country was in regions. Okay, you're talking about where the Midwest belonged, where the country we had how many regions then? Then we had 4 regions. We had first we had some about the West region, we had the Midwest region, we had the Northern region, we had the Western region, and we had the Eastern region. So the middle belt was a kind of region of its own. The middle, it was called the Midwest. It was called a mid. Is it Midwest? Yes, because it was called Midwest. So we had the middle belt, all the regions, all the nations you see in the center were a region of their own. We had 5 regions. We had the Western region, we had the Eastern region, we had the Northern region, and then we had the middle belt, which was the Midwest region. You understand? So the people of Benue, the people of Plateau, and all those people were in the Midwest region. That was a region. So we had those 4 regions. We had the northern region. We had now they have pushed the northern region to extend to the middle belt. You understand? To make it look like they are very big. That is why if you see the map, you will discover that the northern side is so big because they want to include that is why they always use these people, these people in the middle belt for as their stooge. When they want to go and attack, they use Gowan from that place. They use most of them, Danjuma, they use most of them from there as a means of subjugating other aspects. So that it doesn't look like it's coming from them. Midwest part of the old Eastern region. Yes, was Delta Isoko to be part of Midwest? Was Delta Isoko to be part of Midwest? Which one is Delta Isoko? Is there anything like, are you talking about Isoko or you're talking about Delta Isoko? Because there's nothing like Delta Isoko. Or are you talking about Isoko in Delta State? Please make me understand. So was Midwest part of the old Eastern region? Was Delta Isoko to be part of Midwest? No, Midwest was on its own. Midwest had to do with all the regions, all those nations in the Middle Belt. They were called the Midwest. You understand? Because they actually come towards the western side. So they were called the Midwest. Then we had the West, which was the whole of Oduduwa land, including Benin, being part of the West. Then we had the East, which had to do with from that Delta and part of Edo to, the current Edo to the Atlantic Ocean. All those places were the Eastern region. Then we had the northern part of it, which was all those places of, I think, I don't know whether Abuja, was part of them then, or Abuja was part of the Midwest, So, but we had the northern, we had the Midwest, we had the Eastern region, we had the Western region. So these were the regions. We had 4 regions that were there before they began to divide into states. So if you say, was Delta Isoko, Delta, the whole of Delta were actually part of the Eastern region. The Delta, those states, all those nations in Delta, all those communities, was Isoko in Delta State today part of Midwest, and was Midwest part of old Eastern region or part of the West? Midwest was a region of its own. But even if it is, we had the West, we had the East. When you talk about the West, you talk about the whole of the South. The whole of the South comprised of both West and East. Then the whole of the North comprised of both. They now cut, of course, the Midwest side, which has to do with Benue and all of this. I wish, oh my God, you have taken me away from what I'm teaching today. I didn't want to come on this. I wanted to actually give my point. I've taken so much time on this. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? As I'm going to infuse it into, because this is already past the time. But so Delta State, Isoko in Delta State today, part of Midwest. Isoko Delta is part of the East. They were part of the East because the East comprised of all the Biafran territory. They were part of Biafran territory. But the West had to do with Benin and all of the Oduduwa territory. So every nation you see under that Oduduwa territory were West. Every nation you see under the Biafran territory were East. That's why you now have Southeast and Southwest. You understand it? They say South-South. They now say South-South and Southeast. Delta is in Midwest. Yes. Delta is in Midwest. No, Delta is not in Midwest. It depends on what you mean by Midwest. Delta was part of the Biafran territory. The Biafran territory was East. Midwest was actually what was originally in the 70s and 60s. Midwest was, that aspect, that all those middle belt region. They were all, and you know what? Some of this region, anyway, some of these parts you see in Delta State, some of them were part of. Okay, he said, okay, let me see what Mrs. Ada is saying. She said Benue was not part of Midwest. Isoko was in Midwest. Isoko was in Midwest. At independence, Midwest was in Western region. Okay, at independence, the Midwest was in Western region. Okay, I get that. Yes, there were 3 regions: East, West, and North. Yes. No, I'm talking about after these 3 regions. We first had the 3 regions, and then later it was divided into 4 regions. So we now had the Midwest as its own, which comprised of those middle belts and all those places. So, but of course, if you say there was 3 regions, East, West, and North, yes, we actually had East, West, and North, and the whole of the East was Biafra. The whole of the West was the Yoruba region, and the whole of the North was both the middle belts and all of that, which had to do with the North. They called all those places part of the North. They took all those lands, which, of course, even if you look at that Delta state, some of them even belong to that North. And if you look at some of these, some parts of even the West, which is the Yoruba territory, which has to do with the Kwara and all that, they now fused it into even the North. You understand? So we're going to deal with this later very well, of course, maybe because I started calculating from of course, we have the three regions first. We had the Eastern region, we had the Western region, we had the Northern region. But when they now created the Middle Belt region now became of its own. They now called it the Midwest, which had to do with Benue and all those territories around there. So that made it 4. From the 3, they now made it 4. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The Midwest was carved out later, and that made it 4. That's what I'm saying. I said the Midwest now made it 4. So we now had 4 regions. That was what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the initial 3 regions. I'm talking about the 4 regions we had. In 1963, Midwest was carved out of Western Nigeria, making it 4. Okay, you are saying that the Western Nigeria, that means, yes, because those parts of Benue and all of that were part of the Western Nigeria, right? Am I correct, Mrs. Sada Zion? Because you are a lawyer, so you can also tell us all of that. Yes, they were now carved out, and they now made it 4 regions. So that is why Benue and all of that became the Midwest, and then we had the Biafra territory. But all of these were part of Biafra territory, even before all this contraction were divided. Because most of them that you see now in the Midwest right now, or in the center where they call the Midwest and all of that, some of them were part of Biafra, which are some of them in Kogi, some of them in Benue, some of them in even Delta now, that they are put in South. So these divisions now are the things that they've used to divide us, to cause us all this stuff. But we are going to go explicitly on these things. These are not the major things we need to learn. I wanted us to learn some stuff that has to do with fundamentally the problems we had and how we came about this. And of course, this has taken some time, about 10 minutes. But anyway, it's good anyways for those so that we can be informed. Now, if you look at it there, Ms. Sada said the first one is that we had 3 regions. We had 3 regions. Look at it very well. Benue was not part of Midwest as at that time. Isoko was in Midwest as at that time. At independence, Midwest was in Western region. You get it now, dear friends. There were 3 regions, East, West, and North. Midwest was carved out of the Western region in 1963. So in 1963, we now had the Midwest. That's now, they now put some of these parts of these nations in the West into it, and some of those ones in the North into it. So it now formed the base of the Midwest. That's where you now have you now have strange, yes, the divide and rule. You now have strange bedfellows forming the Middle Belt. That is why the Middle Belt is confused. That is why the great confusion in the Middle Belt is so much. Because now you have so many things coming from the West and coming from the East, some coming from the West and coming from the North, being part of the Midwest. So they formed the Midwest, and that confusion is what is putting the Middle Belt in confusion. Because now they are called Middle Belt, so everybody there is Middle Belt, but they have their own mind. So they cannot come together to form a particular force. That is why you see everybody on their own. Benue will be doing their own thing, other people will be fighting them. Other people will be doing their own thing, so they are in confusion. If Ray said I should go and make my research, I was not out of place. I was right. The reason I'm asking is I'm always having arguments with my other brother, because I always tell him we are Biafrans from Isoko Delta State, but he said we are Midwest, which is confusing. Now, the Midwest was created you saw it when Mrs. Sada Zion stated it. She said in 1963, that was when the Midwest was carved. But formally, the Midwest you have today were part of the West and the North, because some of the communities in the North were carved out from the North, and some were carved out from the West, and they were joined to now call it the Midwest. So the Midwest became a confusing name for nations of their own. But the East had to do with all the Biafran territories. The Delta State, those Isoko area and all of that were part of, they were locked up in that Benin region. Of course, Benin actually took all those places at that point in time, even if they were part of Biafra territory. But they were, because of the divide concept, North, West, East, and then the Middle Belt and all of that, it's now created. Let me put a word there so that they will see it. So that Biafra is going to check it. So they now created it to now make that confusion. So when you tell your brother that, when your brother said you are Midwest, well, he's actually right in a sense, because that was the initial division. But he should understand it in the context of divide and rule, knowing that in the first place they were supposed to be Biafrans. Thank you so much, Margaret. Thank you so much. In the first place, they were Biafrans, but they were now destroyed. Now, you see, when you talk about divide and rule, some people don't understand the in-depth meaning of this divide and rule. It is a strong force. Now, that is what I'm trying to bring out from all these lessons, because I'm going to bring the concept of divide and rule. I'm going to still talk about the concept of how this divide and rule form the basis of the cultural templates of Britain, which now which informs the principles they use in controlling us. So these are all the problems we have fundamentally. Now you're having an argument with your brother now, because your brother is actually looking at the template of the British and the Fulani Caliphate. Looking at the template of the British. When I say the British, I'm talking about Nigeria, because Nigeria is Britain. It's Britain's product. Hence, it is British, but it is a corrupt version of British culture. Nigeria is a corrupt version of British culture. That how they form the corrupt version of this culture is that they fused their own culture with the concept of a corrupt religion. That religion was brought out of the way of life which God has designed, which is God's principles of the scripture. But now they corrupted it with their cultural inputs, also fusing, also bringing into the equation, or into the template, bringing it into it the concept of what the Egyptians began with, the concept of subjugation, thinking that they can control those who have power to be able to be powerful. What Egypt did to Israel was, Israel had the power and the ability to build a nation. So they felt that the only way they can keep Israel using what they had as a power over them is to bring Israel under their feet so that they can keep Israel down. I'm going to explain this further in the next lesson. Now, in the next lesson, I'm going to bring it down, narrow it down from the point of Egypt to the point of the Assyrians, then to the point of the Babylonians, and then from the point of the Babylonians to the point of the Mede-Persians, from the Mede-Persians now to the Greek, and then to the Greek, from the Greek to the Romans, and how the British Empire now took over. Now, if you understand this, the Romans never actually, directly governed Biafra, but they were in control of the globe, which means that they actually were controlling Israel, and Israel was fundamentally a global force for economic strength. So every empire that came was seeking to control Israel, because if they control Israel, they are controlling the world's economy. So when Britain came, discovering that we are Israelis, or we are part of the Jewish nation, knowing that we are from that source, they saw it also as a means of controlling us, to control our resources. Now, this is deep. I'm going to take you into that in the next class. Remember, I told you that the Roman Empire, every empire that came, sought to control Israel, because Israel had the solution to the world's economy. I don't know whether you get it. Israel had the solution to the world's economy. I'm going to explain it in the next lesson tomorrow, whether tomorrow 1 p.m. Biafra time. No, tomorrow we're going to be having Prince Ezem, Ihan Acho, and Gaddafi, and maybe one other person joining. But we're going to be having that force, that team coming by 1 p.m. Biafra time tomorrow. We're going to be here tomorrow. But if I have the time, I'll come 5 p.m. to talk about this particular lesson that I'm talking about now, this exposition I have just introduced right now. Mrs. Adazan says, I have Isoko friends. They behave exactly like Igbos. In any case, we are not begging anyone to be Biafran. It is a great privilege to be Biafran. The world will see Biafra and marvel. Yes. You see, my brother, don't try to argue with people to be Biafran. That's why we're teaching. As we teach, we make them understand. So as they understand, they can now begin to make their decisions, and their decisions based on the options available. So their choice now will determine if they will enjoy the blessings that God is giving Biafra or not. But let me tell you this. Don't allow the corruption of that divide tactics, north, south, west, east. make you lose what is about to come. Because the blessing that God is about to give Biafra will make people envious, the world envious. That you, if you had doubted it, you might not be part of it. Because everybody who doubted what God wants to do actually don't enjoy it. If you look at the children of Israel, when they were going into their promise, those who doubted and fought it on the way, all of them perished. It was their children and those who didn't doubt, 2 men who didn't doubt, Joshua and Caleb and their children, that entered into the promise. So don't fight what is about to come, because what you are fighting is beyond your imagination and your knowledge. When you get yourself fighting things you don't understand or things that are above you, you're going to be crushed by them because they are above you. Anything above you is above you. So tell your brother to remove his mind from this contraption of this division, Midwest and North, South, and North. I think they did North, they did Midwest, they now did East, they now did the West, West, East, Middle Belt, and then or Midwest and North. These are the things they have used in confusing our people. These are the things they have used in putting our people in subjugation. We're going to get there. We're going to talk about all of that in the next lesson. Now, listen, I was making a point. I said Egypt controlled the world's economy because they thought they were going to put Israel under subjugation. So thinking that when they put them under subjugation, they're going to use their powers. They're going to use the strength of the Israelis and still put them in slavery. Every empire that came sought to control the economy of the world by subjugating Israel. When Britain also came and discovered that the Jews were an extension of Biafra, they sought to control what Biafra has by controlling them, by putting Biafra in subjugation. That is where we saw the reflection of what happened in Egypt in the British Empire. The British Empire didn't control Israel directly as a nation, but they actually controlled a branch of Israel as a means of controlling the globe. Onenju said that the colonizers were stunned to see the exact replica of the pyramid yes, he said so. You see that in Biafra land. He said it several times in his broadcast. I think that they destroyed them. Who destroyed the pyramids in Egypt? Jews, while in bondage. Of course, while in bondage, they destroyed them. Now, we're going to get deeper into these factors because in all of these, we are going to see where our problem began. Why did we start betraying one another? You're going to hear that in the next lesson. Why did we start allowing ourselves to be used by these people? You're going to get it. You're going to know why. You're going to know how it started. How were we able to influence the world democratically, but yet destroying ourselves democratically? You're going to get it in this lesson. Now, it is very fundamental because it will teach you so many things that you need to know. I want you to join. Yes, Mr. Dazan. Okay, he said built, not destroyed. He said, Onindi said that the colonizers were stunned to see the exact replica of the pyramid at Nsude in Biafra land. I think that they destroyed them. Who built the pyramid in Egypt? Jews, while in bondage. Built, not destroyed. Are you saying I think they built them? Are you talking about the build? Okay, now I understand your statement. I now understand the next term. Okay, you are trying to say that, yes, they destroyed. Yes, it was the Jews. The Jews, which Biafrans were part of. Because God was there when they were building the pyramid. And Eri, the child of God, was there too. They all built the pyramid. Eri saw the pyramid. That was why Eri, when he came to the land where he now took over, he now built it as a remembrance of what they did in Egypt, because it was an evidence of civilization, an evidence of, the power and the authority that Egypt had over the world. Because the pyramid was a unique, sign of control all over the world. It was stunning. It was beyond anything you had in the world. And of course, you know that what makes somebody superior in the world today, what makes America superior is their technological and their technological power. their military strength, all coming from technology. When you have superiority in a particular pattern, you control the rest of the world. That is why Egypt was in control, because they had something like the pyramid that was not anywhere in the world. And the growth and development was so rapid and fast, and the pyramid was a sign of this power. So when Eri left Egypt after they have built that, which we built in Egypt, in that world power, controlling the two aspects of the Jewish nation, the Biafrans and the Israelis, controlling us at that point, and we building that pyramid in Egypt. We now came down to, to Biafra land. We now built that pyramid as a remembrance. You said, who built the pyramid in Egypt? It is the Igbos of the Jews, because the Igbos are part of the Jews. We built it. That is why the colonizers were stunned to see that same replica of that pyramid in Biafra land. So you see it. These are, see, by the next class, I'm going to bring out how these people were able to identify what they saw in us, how they were able to identify. See, they go after the heart of the world's power. And what is the heart of the world's power? Economy. Economy is the heart of the world's power. Esther wants to speak. Okay, let me put you here. Esther. Hello? Esther. Are you there? Hello? Yes, I can hear you. Now I want to connect you. Okay, I want to connect you to. Okay, hold on, please. I want to make you loud. I want to make you come out loud and clear so that the people can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, are you on a program?
Yes, I'm on a program. You want to speak into the program?
Yeah, I'm calling for it because I wanted to see your analysis of the royal, the app of British Constitution, how they held us down and so on. I'm trying to find it, but I can't find where it was. So that's why I'm calling actually.
Okay, please. I want to. Are you calling directly to get this information from me, or you want to actually speak in the program?
I'm calling to get the information from you.
Okay. Okay. You know what you're going to do? Call me in the next 15 minutes.
Okay, then.
Yes, please. Call me in the next 15 minutes. Yes. He said. Thank you. Thank you for calling, and I'm grateful. Thank you. So we'll speak with you later. All right. So now, well, sorry for that. She actually wanted to get an information. I thought she wanted to call into the program. I discovered that we have not, we're not connected to. And let me see. Sorry, everyone. Please, I want to check the Bluetooth to see if we can actually have we can get connected so people can hear what we're doing and then be able to respond to what we're doing. Now, as I was saying, we're going to learn all of these things. We're going to get to understand these things. Now, let me read some of these comments here, so that I know that some people will want to call in, but I'm trying to see if we'll be able to have I'm trying to see if we will be able to have our connection, and then we're going to have you to actually speak up, to speak out to the people, in this regard. So let me see how it goes. And I'm going to read out some of our comments here. So Ms. Adaiza is saying, oh, you do actually, okay, we have talked about that. And let's put up the issue of what this guy is saying, Emmanuel saying. The reason I'm asking is I'm always having arguments with my brother. Okay, we have dealt with this. We have talked about this now. So let's go into the other comments. And we have Mrs. Zaren said something. She said, I have so friends. They behave exactly like Igbos. In any case, we are not begging anyone. Yes, of course, we are not begging anyone, to be part of this. So let me go to the next. Let's see. Yes, we have very similar culture with Igbos, like the food, the two-piece wrapper for our women, even some of the names like Ogo, or how do you pronounce it? Akpala. Yes, Odibo, yes, they mean same to us. Yeah, that is why I said, if you remember the other time I said something, I said, we are all Igbos. Even if we are Isoko, we are all, see, it's just like me, for instance, I'm an Igbo. Of course, I am from a tribe in Igbo. If you are a Jaw, you are an Igbo. So if I come now and decide to say, I want to name myself now as an Igbo, I want to call myself Boi. And I say I'm going to form a language called Boi. Boi, I'm taking the Igbo, the other side now, it's taken from the back, Boi, Igbo, Boi. So if I say I want to call myself Igbo now, and I want to get a language that's called Boi, I begin to design that language, and now begin to get, give birth to children. Sorry, please. I begin to give birth to children, and then I begin to teach them this language that I've designed. I begin to teach them. They begin to understand it. We begin to communicate in that language, and then after a while, they now give birth to their own children. They now begin to teach their own children. They begin to teach their own children. Their own children now give birth to their own children. They now begin to teach their own children. Now, you see, my line, it's begun from me. So we begin to go in that line, and now we begin to call ourselves Boi. It's funny, but it's real. Now, calling ourselves Boi now, we are now using the language that I've composed. And by composing that language, I'm still going to use some undertune from the original language that my father began with. That means the tongue, my initial tongue. That is why you see that most of this language, you see some sound like Igbo, because they were composed by some individuals from the same source. I don't know whether you understand it. So now, when I call it Boi, now before you know it, my family begin to call it Boi. Everybody calls it Boi. They speak. What language do you speak? We speak Boi. We speak Boi, and then before you know it, all the children coming from us now understand Boi. They don't know how it started, but they know that what we speak is Boi. Does that mean they are not Igbos? No, they are Igbos, but they are a tribe in Igbo called Boi, because somebody have now called them Boi, and somebody have now designed the language Boi. And so now they are now Bois, but they are Igbos. So understand that whether you are Isoko, no matter who you are Igbo, because that is your origin. But you are a Biafran because you are a nationality of that origin of Igbo. So whether you are Isoko, whether you are whatever you are an Igbo. We should get this right. Now listen to my friend Akioja. Range. Is that Arrange or Arangi? Arangi or can you imagine how they have successfully taken away our mentality? Now we are arguing over Northwest East. That's the problem. Instead of culture, values, Isoko have nothing to do with the Yoruba. You see, that is what they want to do. They want to put us in this level of confusion where we are just discussing irrelevant things. You are from the West. You are from the East. You are from South. You are not formerly. You were not in the East. You were formerly in the Midwest. So being in the Midwest, you are not actually part of Biafra. You are not. They want to confuse us. We have to be smarter. For God's sake, we are smart. We are smart. We have to outsmart these people. This is the time to prove that we are smart. All this confusion, all these things, you imagine, okay, you can imagine now Efra's brother arguing about, not being Igbo because he's from the Midwest. You see, we need to, oh my God, we need to defeat these people by proving to them that they cannot. How can Fulanis be the ones to put in confusion? They are putting you, a whole you. Let's use if there's something like a whole person, a whole you, putting you in confusion. How can Fulanis, because they were advised by the British, now they call you a name, you now take it to mean that you are less. Now let's look at our brother again. He said, in any ways, as for me, I'm always Biafran. Isoko for Biafra. The month the war entered Isoko land is when the war ended. Okay? Yeah, of course, we that's it, because Isoko land is a very, very strong place, We know all of that. And of course, the Isoko, I've not really gone to know about the details of this Isoko land war. Maybe I'm going to try to look into it and see how the war ended in that place, and how it began and how it ended. Emmanuel is saying something again. He says, growing up, my mother's first choice of wife for me is Isoko. Second choice is Igbo. What is the difference between Igbo and Isoko? That is now the question. Because even that Isoko you are talking about is Igbo, because their origin is Igbo. They're fundamentally Igbo. So what is the difference now? Okay, let me put it in the context of what you mean. Of course, you know that we can have a particular order of people. For instance, if I'm from Ijo and I decide to form a nation of my own called Joe, and everybody around, I begin to compose my language and I call it Joe and all of that. That does not make me less Ijo, but that does not mean that the foundation has been corrupted, because the foundation is still Ijo. So as Ijo, the name Ijo is still the name Ijo is still used to characterize the people who are still bearing that name as Ijo. But as Ijo now, I have changed myself to Joy. So now I am now characterized as Joy, even if I am Ijo, and Ijo is Igbo. So now the same thing here now that's happening. Now there are a group of people who still bear that name, Igbo. Even if some other people have changed the names to mean so many things. You know, some people we have Ijo, we have all of that, even if our source is Igbo. So we have Ijo and all of that. But now you are saying that you are told to marry first Isoko. Of course, Isoko is your tribe now. Isoko is Igbo. But we have people who still maintain that name, Igbo. That does not mean that they are more Igbo than Isoko. So any Igbo person who is Igbo, the name Igbo, that tells you that Isoko is less Igbo, you should counter them with knowledge. Because for the fact that your parents now decide to bear the name Isoko and compose a language in that particular order, Isoko, does not mean that they are less Igbo. They are fundamentally Igbo because that is their source. But they are Isoko. So you can identify yourself as Isoko, but you are foundationally Igbo. So the second wife is going to come from those people who still call themselves Igbo, even if you are Igbo. So it's still from the Igbo. So if your mother is saying, okay, my first choice of wife for me is your mom the one going to make a choice of wife for you, for Emmanuel, for God's sake? First, are you saying, okay, did your mom now make the choice for you? Because of course, parents have a way of trying to be mischievous. They want to first, implant their choices on us. When we grow up now, we begin to understand the difference. Let me look at the comment. Emmanuel, where then did you marry from? Mrs. Anderson is asking, please, that's what I'm asking too. Please, where did you marry from, Emmanuel? Where did you now marry from? Did you marry from Isoko, or you're not married from, or you're not married yet, so that we can look, Mrs. Anderson can help to get you one from the Igbo side too. Yes, we Isoko have nothing in common with Yoruba and even Hausas. Yes, you don't have anything in common with them, of course. We don't have anything in common. You are Igbo. We have everything in common with the Igbos because you are Igbo. Even if we have the Igbos, yet we all are Igbo. They bear the name Igbo, but they are not the root of Igbo. You understand it? They are not the root of Igbo. Isoko and everybody, they are all part of the root of Igbo, but they have now chosen their tribes. Isoko, Ijo, Anam, all of them, forming their own stuff. But Igbo still retain that name, Igbo. But that name is fundamentally for everybody. That is why we need a comprehensive teaching on this topic. I am proudly Biafra. Yes, that is where I'm driving. I want to actually, from this teaching I'm going to be doing, we're going to be going comprehensively into the factors of the Igbo nation. We're going to be going into it to lead us, because I want to make sure that the teaching gains momentum from stage to stage so that it's not confusing. That is why I want to begin with first how Africa lost it, how we lost this power and the ability to use power effectively, because power is intoxicating. Power is addictive. That is why you have corruption coming out of the source of power, because power is addictive. So, but when it is not actually understood in the context of what it is really supposed to mean, it becomes a useful tool to corruption. And when it becomes a useful tool to corruption, it now becomes a tool of serious destruction in the midst of what you are trying to build. Because if you're going to build anything quite all right in life, you need power. But when power is misrepresented or misinterpreted or misappropriated, you are going to now get a system of corruption. And what corruption does is that it destroys what you intend to build. That is what power has been doing. That is why if you vote in Nigeria, you are only going to get a destroyed system, because power has already been corrupted. The definition of power has been corrupted. It has become addictive, and the corruption is now is an addiction that has become a way of life for these people in Nigeria. So when you go into Nigeria and you do your vote, you are still going to get a destruction, because what will always come out of corruption is destruction. There's no way corruption will give you a structure that is very, very, very good for you. Our food are the same, even the way we tie wrapper, it is also the same. Yes, of course, Mazin and Bikano have talked about this, the two-piece wrapper thing. That is why I said, anywhere you see, people must understand our roots. Anywhere, how come the whole tribes are putting on two-piece wrapper without planning it? People should ask themselves critical question. How come the whole Biafra territory, they tie two-piece wrapper? They have 4 market days. How come? There is foundationally something that is common with us. We are Igbo people, people of old, Ndi Igbo, according to Mazin Amikano, the people of old. But for the fact that a particular tribe sustained the name as Igbos doesn't mean that you're not Igbo. We're going to go fundamentally into this, and we're going to bring more, do more research into it, and then get more facts in this light. But I want us to begin from the place where we lost it. Now we have looked at how Africa lost it. Africa lost it when Egypt thought that power that has been given to them is going to be sustained by using the tool of subjugation. That means the tool of bringing all nations, a whole nation, into slavery. Emmanuel Efre says, I'm not yet married. Not married. So, Mrs. Adazayan, I don't know what you're going to do for Emmanuel now. So maybe we're going to begin. I'm going to put this up here now. Some of us, those of you who want him to come into your tribe, if you are from any tribe, you can begin to make recommendations, because I know Emmanuel is up to the age of marriage, and he has to get married, and we need to get him a wife. So we can be giving him some suggestions, so if you are there, you have a wife material. We always call it my wife material. If you have a material like Margaret Jogwe, I guess you're in Germany anyways, because your name, if you have a wife material, you can send to. I don't know whether you're married to Margaret Jogwe. Okay, yes, you said yes, that's your husband's name. Jogwe is your husband's name, so you're married, and so you can get a wife material for Emmanuel. And Mrs. Adaza too. I know she has the capability. All right, so Emmanuel, don't worry, you're going to get a sweet wife that's going to support you in your dreams and visions and be part of you. She's not going to support you in your dreams and visions. You're going to build dreams and visions in synergy. Because sometimes we're looking for who is going to support our dreams and visions, whereas we don't think of how we're going to support their own dreams and visions. You understand? So when you are getting a wife, please think of somebody who has vision also in line with, who's compatible in line with what you are called into, and then so that your visions can be supported together. Don't look for somebody who is you want the person to support your dreams and visions, whereas you are not actually. Emmanuel is laughing. Of course, it's funny, but it's true. So you're going to get a good wife very soon. We our women here have seen we are Biafrans. We know how to meet the needs of our people. So definitely you're going to have it. So that is it. Very well. And we're going to move, as I told you, we are going to be opening it from page to page so that we don't get lost. It's like we are writing a book now. We don't want to be doing our broadcast in a way where we just teach this today, we teach this tomorrow, we teach that next tomorrow. No. The day after tomorrow. Sorry, there's nothing like next tomorrow in English. So sorry for that mistake. And today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, like that. So there's nothing like next tomorrow. I'll meet you next tomorrow. It's wrong. Anyways, English is just a language of a certain people who brought this thing to us and brought their corruption to us. But that doesn't mean that we should actually see that the language is not good. The language is good if we can talk in it, and then also we must have our own language. It is very important. Our language first, before theirs. That's why I want to now start going deep to learn the deeper things of Igbo language, and then begin to learn things like Isoko and all of that. So if I have a good wife now who is maybe is from any of this tribe, I'm going to also begin to learn the language from them, at least. So it's part of it. Where is Emmanuel living? I have a sister for him. Emmanuel, Emmanuel, it seems some things are working to your favor. It seems some prayers are going to be answered though. Jogwer is talking about having a sister for you. I don't know whether it's her sister or just a sister. You know, maybe she has from. I don't know whether the person is a Biafran. Anyways, she has for you, or maybe it's somebody from that region, from the German region. But however, she knows who she's talking about. And so, Emmanuel, you are going to, even if you don't want to tell, you don't know, you don't need to tell us where you know where you are living precisely. Anyways, but you can just tell us the under the country. Is it in the zoo or outside the zoo? So that she can, of course, locate you, and then she will present. There'll be a connection, and then before you know it, who knows, Emmanuel? Who knows whether this is the opportunity to get the person who is going to make your heart jiggy, 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 jiggy? Who knows whether this is the time you're going to get somebody? Oh, my own sister! Wow. I know that Margaret say must be beautiful, because that name Margaret always signalizes beautiful people. So, which means that her sister will be beautiful. But I don't want to look at this beauty just in the aspect of the facial or the curves and all of that. I want to look at it beyond that, because the beauty of the heart overrides the beauty of the face. That is why God said that man looks on the outward appearance, but God looks in the heart, because God knows that the source of the total human existence is resident in the heart. So we want somebody, I know that Margaret would be a beautiful lady in the heart, because her comments here and all of that gives me an impression that she's a lovely lady, and I know that her sister will be a lovely person too. So, Emmanuel, here we go. The floor is open. Where are you based? Where do you live? So that you can have a sweet lady, that you can just begin something, and something can just happen. Then before you know it, you have an in-law in Bakete, Jogware. It's working here. I'll be so glad that on this platform we just had a marriage, coming to. Then I'll bring them up here, and we're going to have an interview. I'm going to interview them, bring the wife here before the marriage, the wedding even comes to play. I'll just design a script for a particular, program here, where I'll bring the lady first, and we're going to talk with the lady. We're going to ask questions, and we're going to find out some stuff from her. Then we're going to bring the guy later, and then we're going to do some stuff, and then we're going to merge them, and then I'm going to create it. I know how to create all this stuff. I know how to create content, so I'll do that, and then we're going to have them. Yes. So, Emmanuel, here we go. So, as I was saying, we are beginning this like we are reading the book page by page, and that's what we want to do. So we move from where the problem began, and I'll be making more of the exposition of how Africa lost the ability to set a right template for how power can be used. Because when you talk about empires, you're talking about power. You're talking about controlling power on behalf of the globe, whether by force or anyhow. But the way you utilize it will now determine how effective it can be for global success and peace. The reason why we have chaos in the world is because the empires that be, or the empires that were, didn't actually utilize these things in the light of what they should use them for. They didn't utilize power in the way it should be used. So they set templates that actually distorted the will of God, for humanity. Anyways, we know that humanity cannot get it right. That is why we're going to have the Savior who is coming back, Jesus. According to scripture, he's going to come back. I don't like calling him Jesus. I want to call him his original name, because I don't even know why Britain wants us to call him Jesus. I don't know why the English people want us to call him Jesus without calling him the real name, that is the Hebrew name, Jehoshua, Amashiach. Jehoshua, that is the real name. So I don't know why they want us to call him the name because I don't even know the Jesus they're talking about. Because the way they corrupted this Christianity to become a religion, the way they corrupted it means that Jesus might mean something else. That Jesus might mean something else in there. I don't know whether you're with me here. Because they brought their religion and could use it as a means of corrupting our ways. Because every religion is supposed to context. Now, let me give you an example. I want you to understand this. Do you know that when Paul, the Apostle Paul, Peter, and all these people took the gospel of Yahushua to the nations, to the Corinthians, and to other places, even when he took it to Rome, he didn't destroy their culture to instill the culture of the Christ. No, the culture of the Christ was supposed to intertwine with the religion of the people to make a uniqueness and to effectively propagate their culture. Now, let me give you an instance. Paul said something, when you go to Rome, you behave like the Romans. When you go to this, you behave like them. But Britain came into us, they never behaved like us. They destroyed us. The gospel of Yehoshua is supposed to fuse into our system and helping our system work better, helping our culture work better. It is not meant to corrupt and destroy our system. But Britain brought it to destroy our culture. That is where the wrong is. That is, now I'll tell you how all of this came to play. I'll tell you how this is one of the factors. Because what they brought destroyed our culture. We now had a major problem. It destroyed the culture of all other nations. That is where the problem is. But when Paul was taking the gospel, he maintained and he retained the culture of the people. That's why when he went to Corinth, he talked about women covering their hair, and all of that, and their glory, the glory of their the glory of the husband is the woman's covering, the woman's covering, and then all of that. He made sure that the people maintained their culture, but in line with the principles of Yehoshua, which he brought from God. We are going to look deep into these things. If we don't look into these things, we're going to be looking into scripture. We're going to be looking at our present day and see the problems that we have. If we don't look into these things fundamentally, we are not going to be reorientated for a better nation we're about to build in Biafra. Because we know we are getting to Biafra next year. 2023 will not pass us by. This is our opportunity, and that is what the opportunity that Yehoshua have set for us. That's the opportunity that God have set for us. So we will get into Biafra, but we need to change our mentality to enjoy Biafra. That is why God wanted the children of Israel to go into their new nation by a mentality. When the children of Israel began to fight Moses and begin to bring the culture of misbehavior, doubt, and grumbling, and begin to build a corrupt culture that they brought out of Egypt, God killed all of them in the wilderness. It was their children who were able to listen to the culture of God that Moses was instilling that were able to enter into the promise. That is why we want to teach our people the things they need to know so that we can enter into our promised land, Biafra, by knowing the right things we need to know. That is the essence of this teaching. And that is why Biafra Global Network has been established, to reinstate in our people and to redesign in our people the culture, the powerful culture of the trueness of Biafra, the trueness of the Igbo race, and the trueness of what Yehoshua brought into it to make it grand and powerful. Emmanuel Okoje, thank you so much. It seems you are just joining, Emmanuel. All hail Biafra. Biafra is the that is why, see, when Mazin Namdekan says Biafra is a religion, it's a religion. He's not actually telling you he's building a particular religion. He's telling you that Biafra has a basis in the platter of God's ordinance. So the basis of God's ordinance forms the culture of Biafra. When the British now brought that foreign corrupted version of that culture, that they utilized that religious design to create, it's now begun to shake our people. That's why I see so much betrayal, because the people got to a point where they were carried away. We're going to deal with all of these matters as we go on. We're going to, please, tomorrow by 1 p.m. Biafra time, Prince Ezem, all of you can testify of his explosive exposition on Thursday, 1 p.m. here. He was very explosive. You can testify. Gaddafi was here too, and they made exceptional expositions. In fact, the exposition, what Gaddafi was saying and what Prince Ezem and Ihanacha was saying, they were going in tandem. They were together. We're going to be having them again on this platform. If there's somebody's going to join again, I'll tell you. We're going to have them. But they'll be coming here 1 p.m. tomorrow, Biafra time. They will be discussing with us. And I want to tell you that tomorrow is going to be explosive. The things that are going to be revealed will stun you, will shake you. See, I want you to share this video. Let Biafrans begin to learn. Send it to all your social media platforms. Send it to the people you need to send it. We'll begin to learn it, and we'll get to the point where even this divide and rule thing, we're going to deal with it. We're going to deal with it. We're going to open it up and open the secrets behind it. This Western region, Northern region, Midwest, and all of this stuff that came to play. All this evil. We're going to tell you the source of this evil. Join us tomorrow 1 p.m. as we meet with Prince Ezem Ihanacho, Gaddafi of Biafra, and one more person, if it's possible. But if not, we're going to have the two of them on stage, and we're going to discuss these things. And then I will tell you whether that tomorrow evening by 5 p.m. because we have the joint broadcast tomorrow. But if I'm not able to come by 5 p.m., no, I don't think I'll come by 5 p.m. because we have meeting tomorrow. So on Tuesday, 1 p.m. Biafra time, I'm going to continue this exposition so that you can hear. Please keep the time, make it a schedule, make it part of your schedule, make it, an appointment. We are meeting here tomorrow by 1 p.m. Prince Ezem will be here. He's going to teach us some fundamental things. And then I'll carry on with the exposition on Tuesday. And you will be surprised. Gaddafi will also be here. Gaddafi is all he has the information, that you need to get at all times. So we're going to be giving you some stuff tomorrow. 1 hour, 30 minutes, we're done, and you go and do. There's no limit to what you can learn. That's why I always say, what you know is your limitation. Because as at this point now, what I know is what limits me. That's what I can say. But by the time I get more information, I now have learned, and it now increases me. So what you know is your limitation, but what you can learn is your increase factor. Let me end it here. I love you all. Thank you for joining me in this broadcast. Please share this broadcast on all your social media platforms. Let people learn, even to your enemies. Let them learn, because that is why we're here, to teach the people. Let them learn. And also, please, I want to also ask you to subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed, and get the people who need to, who need to watch this video also to subscribe. Tell your people to subscribe and be part of this. Let them subscribe and be part of this. And please, this will help to spread the message and get the message far and wide. Thank you so much, everyone. And I love you all. And I want you to know that we are in this thing together, and we shall get results together. God bless you very good, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Together we shall get to Biafra, and together we shall enjoy the benefits of what we are looking for. That's our freedom. Remember, no election in Biafra land. Support ESN, because we want to stop that Nigeria contraption designed by British principles to keep us subjugated. We want to stop that thing by not conducting an election in Biafra land. Support ESN for us to achieve that. That is our mandate. That is our principle. And of course, I'm going to be playing that rejoicing we're going to have when we get Biafra. This is the template of our rejoicing. This, as just like what you see in this video, I'm going to play now. Mazin Namdekan, hailing and all of that. That is what is going to happen. Just. Thank you so much for being part of this. My name is still Kelechi Ambrose. See you tomorrow by 1 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your day.